Okay guys, for this quick video I'm just going to briefly show you how to assemble your Stereonet. Okay, I'm not going to use a thumbtack to show you guys that it is possible to do without one. The first step in any of these processes is of course to gather your materials. Here we've got some Scotch tape, pencil, eraser. I've got my tracing paper. This isn't actually tracing paper, this is parchment paper from my kitchen in case you didn't make it to the store, or if you need an alternative you can use parchment paper, although it will not take ink as well. You'll need your printed Stereonet page and you'll need your cardstock material. So you'll begin assembling your Stereonet, and we're just going to make little rings of tape to affix to the corner. It doesn't have to be any more sophisticated than this. And voila, a Stereonet. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do anytime we start a new Stereonet is just to place our tracing paper on here. We'll outline the circle of the Stereonet. One moment. And it looks like you can see through here. I'm just tracing the outline of the Stereonet. And little rough patches like that, just smooth them out. No big concern. And then one thing you'll want to do to orient yourself is just make a little mark and a north arrow right here. Got our little north arrow. Okay, and now we're ready to use a Stereonet. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to plot a plane. A plane appears as a line on a Stereonet, and the plane that we're going to do is a strike of 120 degrees and a dip of 30 degrees to the northeast. Okay, 120 degrees, a dip of 30 degrees to the northeast. So the first step, our strike is 120 degrees, so we'll mark our strike right here. And then we will rotate our Stereonet so that our strike either goes to the north or the south pole. It doesn't really matter, north or south pole. Now before we rotate it, we want our dip to go in this direction. It's dipping to the northeast. Okay, so strike dipping this direction. So we want that little thing, that little X is going to orient us because we have two choices. We could either go this way or we could go this way. This would be a southwest. This is a northeast dip. And our dip angle is 30 degrees. So just count in from the edge here, 10, 20, 30. This is, then you're going to just trace up this great circle line right here. Connect it to the North Pole. South Pole, and then if you move your Stereonet back, you'll see that you have a 120 degree strike and a dip of 30 degrees to the northeast. Now, any dip that is a low dip angle is going to be closer to the edge of the Stereonet, whereas a high dip angle will be closer to the center of the Stereonet. Now, we're going to plot a line on our Stereonet. So our line here, the plunge is going to be 80 degrees and the trend is going to be 150. So plunge and trend is written the opposite of strike and dip. So our trend is the strike, so that's 150 degrees. The difference here is with a plane, we went to the North Pole or the South Pole with our strike. In this case, we need to go to the east or the west. Okay, it doesn't matter which one we go to here. Okay, we'll just rotate it there. Make sure our Stereonet is aligned. And then we count in the degrees for our plunge. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. And we're doing large, angles, right, to the 10s, but you can do to the 2s or even to the 1s on here. Then you'll unrotate your Stereonet. And there you go, that is a line with a trend of 150 degrees and a plunge of 80 degrees. One last thing you'll be asked to do is plot the pole to a plane. So a pole is just a line that is 90 degrees from the plane. Okay, so let's use our plane that we did here, our 120 with a 30 to the northeast dip. Okay, so we'll go back here and take our strike back to the north and south poles. And to do the pole to a plane, you just count in from the strike line here, this great circle, 90 degrees. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Okay. Great. And that is the pole. Okay. So there we've plotted to our Stereonet. Now you may also wish to read from your Stereonet. So this is much the reverse of plotting. So I have another Stereonet that I've created here that has some markings on it. And we're just going to read these off here. So the first we'll start with is this strike and dip, this plane here. Okay, so we see pretty clearly, right, that the strike is 60, so 060. And then what we'll do is we'll rotate this so that the strike is oriented with the north and south poles, right? And then we'll read off here, right? So this is 5, it says 5, so that means 50 degrees. And then there's also a direction associated with a dip, and this is dipping to the southeast. Your dip is always going to be perpendicular to your strike. So in this case we have a northeast strike, which means our dip, perpendicular to that 90 degrees, is southeast. Okay, so anytime you're not certain, you can puzzle it out that way. Now here's a line that we also want to know the orientation of. So in this case we don't quite know what this strike is. We actually want to rotate it so that our Stereonet is aligned, but the point itself is on the east-west axis here. Okay? And then what we'll do is we'll make a mark out here. First we want to read this, so our plunge is 50, and then put this back to its original orientation, and we see that the trend is 300. There you go. And that is how you plot and read from a Stereonet.